Live and direct, you're tuned into the Diallo Show, broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy that is the city of Chirac, the state of Illinois. Today is July 13th in the year of your Lord, 2018. Of course, Friday the 13th being the day of grand superstition in the Western tradition, a day of dread and fear and horrors. But in the African tradition, 13 was a number of mastery. Go figure. African mastery is Western horror. Maybe there's something we could do with that. Maybe not. Unfortunately, I don't put much stake in superstition, supernatural, ultimate destiny of humanity. So I don't think there's any supernatural causes or supernatural events or supernatural illusions. I don't think that there's going to be any saviors. I don't think on a personal level there is no personal savior. There is no ultimate outcome to earth. There is no intelligent design or potential for rapture or even supernatural redemption in terms of God forgiving you. Anybody that says, well, only God can judge me. In fact, God is probably the only thing that cannot pass judgment on you. Even dogs, even creatures, they're finding that cows, of course, we've known for some time dogs, other primates, and even, especially, it's rather advanced in crows, that they can remember good humans and bad humans. Crows, if there's a person who goes out and abuses birds, crows can identify that person by their features, by their walk, by their scent perhaps, and they will warn other crows that this is a bad human being. So even birds can judge us. Other humans are very good at judging other humans. We've even appointed humans to not only judge us, but to sentence us to death or to prison or probation. We've given other humans the power to take our children away and give our children to others. So other people can definitely judge you. Relatives, we all know. We all have that auntie, that saved auntie, that is the judge, jury, and sometimes executioner within the family, with her hostile stares and toxic rumors. We all know. So for all the people that say, only God can judge me, actually the opposite is true. Just about almost any and everything else, even your intestinal flora, even your own human biology can condemn you. So you're not exercising enough, you're not eating enough of the healthy, proper foods, you're not finding yourself in enough appropriate places, you're not getting enough sleep, and even your body can level consequences against you. So it's kind of funny where people say, only God can judge me, or God has forgiven me, therefore I am forgiven. That is utter nonsense, and it's actually psychopathic behavior. Because God is indifferent, God has no capacity to judge, and God has virtually no interest or stake in judging you. So when you say, only God can judge me, what you're essentially saying is, I relinquish myself from having any social, familial, communal obligations. Meaning that my ties, my bonds to you are arbitrary, or they're only one-sided. So if you say only God can judge me, what you're saying is no one can judge me. And what you're actually saying is when no one can judge me, everyone can judge me, but I'm indifferent to your conclusions, which makes you a threat. It makes you an erosive presence in anybody that's willing to share space with you. Because what you're saying is you have the capacity to judge me. You have the capacity to evaluate my behavior. You have the capacity to be impacted by my actions and then draw up as a result of my impact, of the impact of my actions on you individually or the community as a whole. You can draw conclusions about that. You can develop opinions and positions based on that, but none of that is relevant. I don't see you as fully human. I don't see you as a relevant entity. You see how this absurd notion starts to build on. And then you wonder why has the church been a part of so many atrocities? From blessing slave ships to, collaborating with Nazis. There's a good book called the Hitler's Pope. And it talks about how the Catholic Church was complicit. But I know in America we love banging on the Catholic Church to an extent. But a Catholic priest just called 1 million black folks to march up and down a highway. So I mean, the Catholics haven't totally lost their legitimacy, no matter how many of their crimes are exposed, no matter how many of the stolen, ill-gotten resources they refuse to return to native peoples across the world. That's another discussion. But the Protestants, they done did they dirt. Every time I say that, I can't DMX when I was, you done did your dirt. Brothers wonder how long you hid your skirt right under their eyes. Quite a surprise. That one of their mans. Anyway, how long? Or that it reminds me when Khalid Muhammad said, if you look under the Pope's skirt. Khalid Muhammad at once said, we need to look under the Pope's skirt and find out what's under there. And when he said that, what he was alluding to is the many crimes of the Catholic Church against African people. And he was also saying the many treasures, the trillions of dollars that the Vatican has in wealth and real estate across the world. He said we need to look under the Pope's skirt to see, to get our reparations, to get our justice, and to find out the truth. But then several years later, and he was greatly condemned for that. He was greatly condemned, considered disrespectful. And I don't think there's any way for a victim to be disrespectful to their victimizer, for an oppressed to be disrespectful to their oppressor. I don't think there's a possibility of that. I don't think victims owe victimizers anything but an ass whooping. But more, I want to say something about the victim concept and the victim mentality. I heard something that was quite disturbing to me. That really pissed me off. But let me get through this first bit of jawboning I got to do this morning. But then he later said, well, I got condemned for saying, look up under the Pope's skirt. They said I should be more respectful of the Pope. They said, and it was Pope John. He was a popular Pope. Not like Pope Ratzinger. But this Pope, they want to make him a saint now. But anyway, he was a popular and beloved Pope by Africans especially. And he said, well, I said, let's look under the Pope's skirt to see what we would find. And I'm talking about atrocities and resources, but when we looked under the Pope's skirt, what I actually found were little boys, which got Khalid in more trouble, which made Khalid. Now, Khalid didn't ever say, he said, you can kiss my you-know-what. He didn't care about what white folks had to say, especially Catholic white folks. But anyway, they found little boys under their skirt. But anyway, all I'm saying is this: only God can judge me, only God can forgive me, only God can obligate me is an absurd notion. It's just one of the most anti-human, destructive ideologies that humans have ever conceptualized or conceived. I'm sorry. And like I said, other people can judge you. Your relatives, your loved ones can judge you. Even certain members of the animal kingdom can judge you and deem you a good person or a bad person. It's just about the only thing that cannot, will not, has never judged anyone is God. Any of the gods. The Abrahamic God, Father Abraham, had many sons, and many sons had Father Abraham. The Abrahamic God that gave birth to Judaism, Christianity, and all of its various sects, the Protestant line and the Catholic, Roman Catholic, or Eastern Orthodox, and Islamic and its many emerging sects. Those are the Abrahamic religion. But even the Hindu gods, or even the more philosophical concepts, you can all, the universe can't judge you anyway. The universe is absolutely, and I wish I could take everybody that talks all this nonsense about what the universe has for you, put you in a rocket, and send you outside of Earth's atmosphere. And the universe will kill your ass in a matter of seconds. Make your lungs implode inside your body. That's what the universe thinks of you, biological creature. In fact, you need to forget about the universe and worry about the soil, the water, the air, and other living creatures on this planet. Send out positive, send out your vibes, your energy, your love, your, sanctified soy butter, whatever. Share it amongst other people because that's all we got is us. And the animal creatures. One of my favorite lines from KRS-One, he said, people have more respect for a holy book than they do for a cow on a meat hook. We're valuing immaterial fantasies more than material realities. That is the folly of man. But moving on, the American hero, the American patriot, the potential savior of America, Stormy Daniels, was arrested in, what was it, Ohio? In Columbus, Ohio. I've been to Columbus. Oh, man. I went to Columbus for two reasons. One, my brother was graduating from college. He was a basketball star, 6'8" monster out there. ESPN, all over the place. He was a monster. He still is a beast on the court in his later years. He's still coaching and creating a whole new generation of basketball ball chasers. But I went to Cleveland. He was in Cleveland, not Columbus. But I went through Columbus. I went to Ohio for my brother's graduation, and then my brother's wedding. He met his sweetheart in college. I mean, fairy tale life. Young brother in the projects, had a wicked jump shot, got a full scholarship, took full advantage of the scholarship, got out the ghetto. Oh man, I mean, it's like a what do you call it? But he not like lying ass my younger brother. I can't call him my little brother because he towers over me, but he's like a for real. What Ben Carson? Remember how Ben Carson used to lie and say he was from the projects on welfare, from the hood. He pulled out a knife on somebody, tried to stab him with their belt buckle. Y'all don't remember the lies. Ben Carson was just a lying sack of feces, a lying scumbag. And I used to want to like Ben Carson because Ben Carson was a 7-day Adventist. And back in the 80s and 90s, he would promote that, and that's when I was first becoming a vegetarian and then a vegan. And the 7-day Adventist Church was one of the most pro-vegan, pro-vegetarian entities in the hood. So I'm like, if you're going to have a delusion, at least have a delusion that provokes you to eat better. But anyway, I never liked him. I didn't like that good book, Gifted Hands. And I remember it was a time, if you had a striver in your family, all the people in our families that had a little something, that made a little something of themselves, and they had some wayward youth in their family, they go out and buy them a copy of Gifted Hands. So I had a homie whose auntie took him to church one Sunday, and then after the church, she had a gift for him. And you know how, maddening it is when somebody says, I got a gift for you, and it turns out to be a book. Don't ever do that to a child. And I know some of y'all like to think, well, my child is academic, my child is gifted. My child is academically oriented. Still, I don't think any child wants a book or a gift. A book should just be like background. Books should be like food. Just something that is always present and available, and you have your particular taste and your particular preference, but it's just a part of life. It shouldn't be no special event. Anyway. Now my kids, they get books just coming and going. It ain't no book. At least that's how I think. I think literacy and reading should be background. But anyway, I read Gifted Hands, unimpressed. Didn't know it was full of lies, but still unimpressed because it was too much Jesus in it. Too much God got you through, and God didn't do a damn thing. Like you said, not only can God not judge you, God can't help you. And nothing pisses me off more because, I had family members. Shout out to Uncle Chris. Shout out to Auntie Joanne. That when my family, I was homeless at times in my youth. There was times I didn't have things that I needed. And family members come through with a bag of groceries, a package of socks for the new school year, some books and notepads as my child. And instead of saying, thank you, Auntie Joanne, thank you, Uncle Chris, you know, people would say, thank God, and tell me, oh, you thank the Lord for this is truly a blessing. I'm like, this ain't no blessing. I see the receipts. This came from Kmart. This came from Ventures. This didn't come from on high. This ain't manna from heaven. You know? And then you might try to tell me, well, the Lord put it on, and the Lord didn't put nothing on nobody's heart. You know, I saw Uncle Chris taking blood pressure pills. So if God gonna put anything on his heart, let him put some of that, clear off some of that plaque. I don't believe it. But anyway, that used to frustrate me. People thanking God for the actions of human beings. And it frustrates me. And now that I, having positive role models in my life, know that when I have people in my life, people in my family that are struggling, you got to kick in. You got to stay there. I don't care if they're struggling with drugs, alcohol, or whatever. You got to help your people. You got to ride with your people. You got to support your people. And then here I come with my support, my limited struggle support. And then people, oh, thank God. Now, I ain't going to say no names because they might be listening. I just had a relative. I took something. I broke off a little something. And they going to start singing gospel music right in my face. But that's another thing. If you're going to reject, if you're not going to be, you know, on Jesus' bus, your family will antagonize you. I don't understand it. Because my relatives, they love to hold up pieces of meat, you know, some burn-in. You know, they love to hold up Gates and that hickory smelling barbecue sauce. You want some Gates? Every time I come around, same old jokes for the last 20-something years. Since I got off the swine and got refined. What is that tired joke? What is it with you meat eaters? I mean, I've never been tempted to like take a piece of broccoli and take it to one of my meat eating relatives and say, ooh, you want a piece of this broccoli? I don't know why. Oh, you know you want this fried chicken. I'm like, okay, maybe that was funny in 92, maybe 93, 94, 95, 96, 2000, 2012. It never ceases to make. But they like to make fun of that. And they like to make fun of, ain't no atheist in the foxhole. And there's going to be a time you're going to call on the Lord. You're going to wish you hadn't been saying all that stuff. But the moment I turn around and say, you know, you keep eating that, they're going to take your foot. Or if I make fun of their silly delusions about God and the universe and creation and their dogma, it's just the biggest it's like the biggest breakdown. You can't say nothing about their delusions, but they can make fun of your practical life choices. Sane, rational, moral. But anyway, Stormy Daniels, American patriot, American hero, potential American savior from the Trump cabal, the Trump regime, was arrested in Columbus, Ohio. And I read this story. She was just here. She came through Chicago, got some stacks, got some racks on racks, made a little paper, and bounced. Smooth sailing. And let me tell you something about Chicago. Chicago is heavily regulated and aggressively policed. But again, it's a Democratic stronghold. And she's a Democratic icon at this point. But anyway, they say that she was in a strip club and she was touched. And apparently Columbus, Ohio is a Bible Belt, a Midwestern, and that which goes, because my brother, like I said, he got that wicked jump shot. He went on a full scholarship to, what was it? Columbia, Ohio State? Whatever. One of them NCAA schools. I have to admit, I've only seen one game. He was on ESPN. But anyway, you can't. They have moral. There's a moral and an immoral way to do stripping. There's like a godly way, like a regulated godly way to do stripping, which the rules and regulation for strip clubs. Usually, I've been to strip clubs. Y'all not gonna Umar me. Y'all not gonna try to trick me into acting like I'm a moral leader. I'm not a moral leader. I'm not, to the extent of that I'm anything. I think that I'm a practical voice. I think that I am a historical voice. I think that I am scientific, evidence-based voice. I think I am a rational voice. I think I am a Pan-African voice. But one thing I'm not is a moral authority or a moral voice. I don't try to tell y'all to be righteous. I try to tell y'all to be practical, pragmatic, revolutionary, conscious, class conscious. There's a lot of things I advocate. But if you want to go to a strip club after your study group, if you want to go to a strip club after a hard day on growing organic food for the people, struggling for the people, fighting for the people, if that's how you decompress, only God can judge you. Anyway, I don't care. I really don't care. Because I have rationally concluded that people are primates. And people have always got, and people are always going to do it. And then the societies with the most repression in terms of people's loins tend to generate the most degeneracy. You take a place like Saudi Arabia, all women are covered. And people always that have been to the kingdom have always talked about, well, they don't even lock doors in Saudi Arabia. When the street vendors are done selling their wares, they just drape a cloth over it because it's such a moral, upstanding society. As soon as you look under the Saudi king, as soon as you look under the imam skirt, what do you see there? Sex trafficking. That's a sex trafficking hub. Especially they like blondes, and they love going to like the former Soviet bloc nation, getting desperate, illiterate girls, bring them there and put them into sex slavery. You go to Afghanistan, a theocratic nation, a theocratic stronghold. And then you go don't look it up, it's really tragic, the dancing boys of Kandahar, the dancing boys of Kabul. Kabul, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right in Farsi. But anyway, there is a strong culture of trafficking and molesting young boys. It is sinful for a man to have sex with a man, but it is appropriate and fine. It's from the Greco-Roman tradition. If you are helping a young boy, if you are providing shelter, clothing, education, mentorship for a young boy, then the young boy can compensate you through sexual favors. That is very strong in Afghani culture. So you look at societies, I mean, you ain't got to go to, I don't want people, you picking you Islamophobic. I mean, how you going to call a black man Islamophobic? Shoot. Islam is Afrophobic. I never hear it. That's what we need to talk about. Islam is Afrophobic. I can't be Islamophobic because anything I say negative about Islam can be reflected in my history. They've been enslaving us, occupying our lands, and dehumanizing us, mutilating, murdering us. Go read Samuel Cotton's Silent Terror, and then get back to me on black Islamophobia. But that's another thing. But Islamophobia is real. I'm just saying I ain't one who holds it. I'm not phobic. A phobia is an irrational fear. If your hostilities, if your criticisms are based in rational conclusions, is based in historical fact, then you're not phobic. If I say I am against the American empire, I hate American militarism, that's not America-phobic, that's not military-phobic. It's because I got stacks on stacks of stacks on history, on atrocities that the United States has committed across the globe. Same thing with Islam. Nothing to get against any particular Muslim, but the ideology, the religion, the dogma, the political agenda, the economic agenda, the ideology of Islam, don't come to me with that. And my father and two oldest brothers are Muslims. Devout, been Muslims as long as I can remember. And I told them once, I'll tell them twice, and I'll tell them thrice. They don't want to come to me with that. But then again, when they greet me with the universal greeting, assalamu alaikum, I'll say wa alaikum assalam. No skin off my teeth. You want to say howdy do in Arabic, then let's say howdy do. It ain't no skin off, but I know if y'all want to try to, as they used to. Like my dad told me, you make a good Muslim. You know, the way you carry yourself, you're real disciplined in how you eat, you're into the reading, you know, you make a very good Muslim. I don't know why you don't just get with the program. Come on to the masjid, bump your head on the floor with me, and we could do, we could have a close. And I'm like, nah, can't do it. We can't do it. No. But anyway, I don't want to be thought, even though I just said all these horrible things, I don't want to be accused of being anti-Islam. So let's go to Utah. Sexual repression Utah is a Mormon theocratic state. And now, thanks to these computers and these computer algorithms and this data collection, we find that who's watching the porn and what type of porn people are watching around the world, and especially around the United States. And you go along the Bible Belt and you find the biggest freaky deaky stuff. The states that have the most conservative views and values, most anti-gay, and you look at the number one porn, you go to Pornhub and the other pornography sites that collect this data, find that the search engines, who's consuming the most porn, the people that live in the most religious, restrictive places. Utah not only funds like anti-gay legislation, they fought hard, they went hard in the paint against gay marriage, Proposition 8 in California. You know, they fought hard against the gay agenda, harder than Umar could ever imagine. You know, Umar needs to join the Mormons. They got the same agenda. And he already got, you know, a couple of wives, multiple baby mamas he could make into wives because he's so into the black family. But anyway, and all you find is man pon man, uman pon uman, which means man and man, woman and woman, gay porn search. And then, even more ironically, where do you find black porn or ebony porn, black stud, cuckold, black woman, black man porn in the most racist regions? So people are primates. That's why I can't even waste my time on that. What's that one white supremacist who shot up that Jewish center because the Jews run America, and then they found out he was had a fetish for black trans I don't know which is the appropriate, transvestite or transgender or whatever. He had a proclivity. He wanted black men who dressed up like women and acted very feminine. And whatever that classification is, prostitutes, trans prostitutes, that's what he was into. He hadn't been caught with some. So he hates Jews, hates niggers, but, when the lights go down, and the Luther Vandross come on, all our ideology gets put on the shelf. But don't worry, because you pick it off the shelf. It ain't nothing new, don't gasp, don't clutch your pearls. He wasn't doing nothing but carrying on in the tradition of his racist ancestors, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benny Boy Franklin, John Quincy Adams, all them other that like to sniff in behind black people at the same time they say we subhuman beasts. It's the same thing. Ain't nothing new. So that's all I'm saying. Well, Stormy, but anyway, back to Stormy Daniels. They have all these. What is the point of trying to regulate a strip club? I understand regulating in terms of make sure the money, it's a cash in, cash out business. So I can understand the state wanting to monitor the revenues. Make sure that the performers and the patrons and everybody's paying their proper taxes, that the government gets its proper due. That's number one. I can understand regulating, monitoring that, especially in a heavily cash-oriented singles flying the supreme money gun shooting. I can understand that. I can also understand regulating because it is alcohol and rowdy behavior, so you want to have proper security and proper insurance for injury. But then you want to regulate, proper touching, improper touching in an adult setting. I mean, seems stupid. But not only that, if you read the article about Stormy Daniels' arrest, it was like a sting operation. Like they had half the damn club was all undercover officers, and they sent in some female undercover officers. And it's Bible Belt. They got women in there, making it rain on other. And so the female cop walks up and dances up on Stormy and touches up on Stormy, and Stormy does that whole little motorboat thing. And so she goes in and goes to the bathroom, and Sector 99, code 223, calls for backup. And then they went to some other officers like, well, see if you can go up and touch her breast and see if you can go up and touch her butt. And as many cops as possible, we're going to have them go up and touch on this woman under false pretense to see just how many charges we can hit her with. So they had a whole line of undercover officers waiting in line to grope Stormy Daniels. And when like the 15th officer, they had officers coming in on and clocking in for overtime, like, oh, yeah, I want to be in part of this investigation. You know, and that's real funny when the cops engage in the very behavior they tell us citizens we're not allowed to engage in. Well, I'm doing it to protect you from doing it. It's like the cop that tells you that now in Chicago you can get a $500 ticket if you're on your cell phone while you're driving. But the cop that pulls you over literally has a full computer monitor sitting right in front of his steering wheel. And he has a radio on his vest, a camera on his chest, a computer monitor, keyboard, full laptop, and all this other digital, and a radio, satellite, and the same cop that, but I'm a policeman, therefore I can drive, not looking where the hell I'm going, looking at a computer screen, but you're a lowly citizen. And so, yeah, I can fill up prostitutes and I can fill up strippers in the streets in order to confirm whether or not people are filling up strippers in the streets and arrest them to protect them and protect you from I don't know what. But anyway, this was a multi-level premeditated because they knew Stormy's on a national tour. So they knew she was coming. So literally the Ohio, I'm like, what do Ohio's highways and roads and schools and infrastructure, water quality, air quality, what the hell? I mean, what is the overall homicide rate, theft, fraud rate? I mean, Ohio, last time I was there, the place looked miserable. I'm going to be driving through Ohio in August. And I put the pedal to the metal and the thing on the floor because Ohio looks like crap. All of it, the whole state. Yeah, I said it, and all you people, and I know y'all black folks love claiming. The only thing Ohio has given the world is sports, mindless sports, and Bone Thugs and Harmony. And y'all see how rough. Them brothers made millions of dollars and still look struggle. All of the Bone Thugs and Harmony. How you make $1 million and your hair still look like it got braided on the back porch of your auntie's illegal daycare center? Them brothers look struggle, and they go out and buy gold, and they used to wear these long leather trench coats, and they still look dusty. Their hair was uneven. They weren't that cute. And y'all see how money cleans people up? Look at 50 Cent. He looked like an aggressive prison predator, and now he looks like a businessman. Still, on the juice, but still, he looks a little bit more polished. Gang too. Gang looked like a dude who didn't have proper hygiene. Few $1 million and a couple of face tattoos. He's a bona fide celebrity. Y'all know how, look at Snoop Doggy Dogg. Y'all forget how Snoop looked when he first came out. And T.I., Nas, Jay-Z, y'all see how when they when they first came out, when they were raw, when their music was really good, and look at them now after a few $1 million, a few cocktail parties and some elbow bumping and rubbing with white folks, they refined. They're poised, they're articulate. They sit next to Jimmy Fallon on the couch on national TV and talk about issues of the world. Bone Thugs and Harmony coming out of Ohio, all the money in the world. Couldn't fix that level of struggle, because that's what, so I don't understand how, no diss to Bone Thugs and Harmony. Y'all kept it real. Grimy, but still, talented cats. I might play something. Maybe I'll play Crossroads so I won't have you Ohio cats coming at me, because y'all some rough cats. I didn't even know about that. I thought it was just corn and wheat and country music. Nope. Who'd have thunk? Black folks in Ohio. All I'm saying is, where the hell does Columbus, Ohio, have the resources to set up such an elaborate, multi-level, premeditated sting operation? And y'all know her lawyer's a beast. That Avenatti, I'll tell y'all my theory. Put on your aluminum hats. And I need to get to this topic. But, I mean, this is an absurd world, man. I don't know. But this is relevant. I think the Trump administration, because, Obama illegally coordinated with, he used federal resources, military and intelligence agency resources to help local policing agencies systematically destroyed the Occupy movement. Obama was a tyrant. I can't. But let me know. Let's get back to Stormy Daniels, somebody with more dignity and self-respect than Obama. Obama's a bigger whore than Stormy Daniels, but I mean, he got bigger payout too. Stormy Daniels got $100,000 to whore with Trump. Obama got 100 million and counting to whore for the global elites. But anyway, where the hell did Ohio get these kind of resources? I'm going to have to look into Ohio's infrastructure because they got time and money to burn, apparently. Anyway, they say Avenatti hurt. Oh, let me tell y'all about my theory, and then I'm going to move on. I got a couple other things I want to say, and then I want to talk about slave to the algorithm. Avenatti, I think he's a brother. That's why he shaves his head, because I think his hair will curl up. I think he's passing. So, that's some free to Trump. Run that angle, because, I mean, he got Trump on lock. Trump is a crook, and it's pretty obvious he's one of the greatest con men in the history. I do think he colluded with the Russians. But anyway, all that aside, this Avenatti guy's a beast, man. Talk about a warrior lawyer, and I think he might be passing. Bro, a lot of them cats that pass like to take Italian names because Italians are swarthy. Go look up what swarthy means. So if you look, when you a black dude and you pass him for white, and when you come and say, hey, well, how you doing? My name is Mike, and people will look at you. Well, your name is Mike, boy. I mean. He's like Avenatti, and you one of them Italians. Okay, y'all tend to be olive colored, whatever the hell olive colored means. Y'all tend to be swarthy. That's just my theory, and I'm giving some free advice. Send your feds to look into that. I think there might be something there. You could blow it up. I don't know what y'all can do with that. I'm enjoying the ride. My candidate didn't get in. So all the rest of it can go to hell. I'm enjoying the ride. I mean, this is like America, the reality show. Trump has turned the whole damn country into his low-level, low-class, scummy, stanky, orange-infested, spray-tan reality show. It's whack. But then again, still entertainment. I'm going to laugh to oblivion. Papa John's, I don't know what, ain't got nothing to say. Not surprised. The CEO of Papa John's, and he's one of them like celebrity CEOs who likes to get in front of the camera. He's kind of like the what do you call it, the Puff Daddy CEO. Likes to be in front of the camera alongside his artist or alongside his enterprise. Was heard saying nigger on a conference call, and one of his subordinates recorded it and released it. And so black folks know Papa John's pizza, but I don't think we have much stake there. But this guy's a Trump supporter. He opposed the NFL protest. He said that the NFL protest was bad for business, right-wing conservative, yada, 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 and all that. So what? I mean, I don't think black people should be eating Papa John's or any other pizza. Pizza is not good for you. And I don't know, people, there's amongst the feminist community, feminists are very upset that abortion rights are under threat. They think if if Trump is able to put this Supreme Court justice in place, then that's it for Roe v. Wade. But beyond that, let me just say this before we move on. Charlemagne the God was accused of rape. And shortly after Charlemagne the God, and I can't stand that dude. And the reason I can't stand him is because he's a new Negro. And if I have to explain what a new Negro is, I'll do so. But he wrote that book, Black Privilege. He's an integrationist. I don't see him being particularly talented. I don't know what people get out of watching Charlemagne. But long story short, there was a recording that I heard. And let me say, y'all know Star, The guy, he used to be with Star and Buck Wild, and they used to have that publication, Around the Way Connections. The guy was essentially a commentator and a comedian. But one thing I found about Star, he's gone independent now. He has his own independent show. Is that he used to have a radio show, but he can't work for other people for too long because I guess he goes off script too much. But he's been real consistent in exposing the sex crimes and abuses within the hip hop community. He was one of the main guys that broke the Africa Bambaataa. He's the main guy that called out KRS-One for his support, his refusal to condemn African Bambaataa. He was on top of Cosby, and he interviewed the victim of Charlemagne. And Charlemagne, the rapist, was interviewed talking about, there's two separate interviews. One interview where he talked about he had a woman who was interested in him, and they had a date. And so for this date, he went, in preparation for the date, he went and bought some Hennessy. Then he went and bought some drugs, some Mollies or whatever, some pills, and he also went and bought the date rape drugs, roofies or Spanish fly, whatever they call, in anticipation of the date. And the guy who was interviewing him said, if this woman was interested in you, you claimed that you and this woman had history and you were both interested in each other and you knew it was going down, why would you buy Spanish fly for a woman who was ready to consent with sex with you? And I'm thinking, yeah, well, like you claim this woman who accused you of rape was consensually, was down, was ready to kick it with you, but you also said that you bought date rape drugs. I don't even like the concept date rape. But there's a lot of stuff I don't like. I don't care what I don't like. Y'all ain't listening to me. I don't like white supremacy. I'd rather say white supremacist. A white supremacist is a white aggressor. Like, yo, he's a white aggressor. White supremacy is not white supremacy, it's white domination, white exploitation, white hegemony. And I don't like date rape. It's rape. I don't care what conditions you rape somebody under, whether you jump out of the bushes and snatch a stranger, or you rape someone that had trusted you enough to go out with you or let their guard down. Rape is rape. So it's rape. He didn't commit date rape, he committed rape. And I think when you put date on there, that's kind of like supposed to soften the blow. I don't know. But anyway, in the interview, Charlemagne the God, and I can share the interview, is quite appalling. And they're giggling and laughing back and forth, but he says basically, he recounts how he drugged this woman, got her drunk and high. After she lost consciousness, he had her way with her. She woke up and said to him, what happened? I have no recollection of what happened. And he says, I had my way with you. In much more crass language, I'm under FCC regulations because this is a moral, upstanding, righteous country that won't allow profane words on the air because that's how godly. You can't touch prostitutes and you can't say words that everybody thinks on the air. Anyway, then Charlemagne proceeds to say, then she's like, are you sure it's just you? She calls him later and said, was it just you? And then she's like, well, and he laughs and say, well, I had some guys watching you. They saw you naked. They watched what happened, but they didn't touch you. And he claims that the girl said to him, well, I'm glad it was you. If I had to have someone have their way with me while I'm not aware, while I haven't consented, I'm glad it was you. And he claims, well, the girl had, even though she was unconscious when I had my way with her, there was already a prior understanding that we would do this. And then that is what provoked the question, then why would you get Spanish fly or roofies for a woman who was going? Usually you don't buy drugs to make someone lose consciousness. And he was like, well, if you gave her the roofies and she passed out, he was like, well, she was there, but she wasn't there. She was groggy. She wasn't fully aware. And they laughed and joked and chuckled and laughed and joked. And this went on and on. I think I did share this on my Tumblr blog. You can find it on there. And then there's another interview where he threw another party and a woman was raped at this party. And he claims his cousins were involved. And he says that, and it's really weird, where Charlemagne said that he went to, he threw a party, and he went and he said that there were a lot of people who were underage. They weren't allowed to drink at the party. And he said that he was 20 years old or less. I don't know. He said he was 20, I believe. But there were 15 and 14-year-old girls at the party. He was 20. And he couldn't legally buy alcohol just yet. He was just less than a year away from being able to. So he went, and which is what we do. I've done this. You have, well, we used to call them winos in my day. Winos buy your liquor for you. So you go outside the liquor store, and the winos would hang out on the weekends, and they would go in and buy beer and liquor for underage people. I've done this. You know, me, and not just me, let me get my snitch hat on. Terrence, Rip T, Randall, Sage, Egosh, Troy, a.k.a. Knie, Al, Bo, a.k.a. Bo, all these hood, I'm giving y'all hood name and y'all governments. We used to go up to winos. That's what they were called. I don't know. I think the crackheads ran off the winos. It's like, I don't see winos anymore. But anyway, you go up to them, you know, you in high school, sophomore, freshman year. Not really, I wasn't that hip. I wasn't that hip of a young man. More like junior, senior year. And you go up and be like, yo, go in and get me some MD 2020, some Cisco, just horrible, horrible, horrible stuff. We were not connoisseurs of the spirits. You know, MD 2020, Cisco, Mad Dog, you know, 40 ounce. This was the 40 ounce day, some Schlitz malt liquor, you know, St. Ides. And they go in and they either pocket a little money or they take a cut of the liquor stash. They take a fifth or something, some ripple, right? So everybody's done that. That's not a shock. That used to be a pretty lucrative thing for indigent men. And, you know, I never saw women out there doing, but it was a lucrative thing. They literally set up. And you show up on a Friday, Saturday night, and the wino wasn't outside, lingering around the liquor store. You'd be pissed off. Like, damn, I need to get my stuff. And, you know, he's in buying for somebody else. You know. But anyway, that's what Charlemagne did. He's throwing a party, a house party. He supplied not only 20-year-olds, but 14 and 15-year-olds with liquor. And because it was a house, it was cavernous. People were going and separating into separate rooms. One of the young ladies went into a room. And this is according to Charlemagne. She was sexually assaulted. Then he claims the next day his cousins called him and said, yo, your other cousins and your friends are in jail now for raping that girl at your party. And he was like, what? So he ran down to the police station. This is Charlemagne's account. He ran down to the police station and said, officer, please release my cousin. Anything that happened at that party was my full responsibility. I take full responsibilities. Please release my cousins from custody. And the cop says, we don't even have your cousins in custody. We don't have anybody in custody. So what are you talking about? And there has been no reports on any sexual assault related to your party. So he was like, what? So then Charlemagne claims that his cousins that he didn't invite to the party lied and played a trick on him about the cousin. Like, that don't make sense to me. And this, I mean, I'm recounting verbatim what he said. So he said he went his way. It's like, wow, they tricked me. They player haters because they didn't get invited to my fun, alcohol-infused party. They played this trick. Now, if your cousins weren't at your party, how do they know there were underage girls there? How do they know who was there? And especially beyond your cousins, these other girls, how do they know anything to even set up this practical joke if they weren't at the party? And they played this joke because they were mad that they weren't at the party. You know, and when there's a party going on and you hating, you call the police on the party that night. You don't call the next day and say, oh, a girl reported being raped at your party that I wasn't at. I don't even know what girl. But anyway, just so happens later that week, a young lady did report to the police that she was sexually assaulted at that party. And she said because she was 15 and she was full of alcohol, she doesn't recall who. But she knew it was Charlemagne. She had spoke to him, had interacted with him earlier that night, that he was being very sexual with her, and so on and so forth. So then they go and arrest Charlemagne. uh, for rape, and they were going to have him be a registered sex offender, the whole nine. They were about to run him through the system. But anyway, Charlemagne did have a little name and a little resources at that time, so he got it, pleaded down to corruption or contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and he paid a fine, and he didn't have to go on a registered sex offender. But the whole way he set it up didn't seem like it made sense. And then when you start to see these patterns, because anytime you find a serial rapist, a serial abuser, they always have these stories. Like Cosby was always meeting with these aspiring actresses in secret to help them with their career, and it just so happens things go awry. And these stories just always pile up. And even when you hear their side of the story, it's like, man, because whatever business I got with you that can't be conducted in a public place or a semi-private place, maybe an office building. I mean, if you believe you me, if I ever give you a call saying come to my private hotel suite to conduct some business, please refuse that call. For my and your own benefit. Not that I've ever made that call for somebody trying to pretend like I want to do business in a hotel. But if I ever get that far off. But anyway. What's another thing? But then to collaborate, the young woman who made these accusations 16 years ago, I think, about being raped, and she followed through, and her case got pleaded down to delinquency of a minor. She was on Star Show. She was interviewed. And she was like, the way he recounted it doesn't make sense, and that's not how it happened. Long story short, she's like, nah, my story's finally coming out because it's a new era. I tried to get my story out almost 2 decades ago, and now in this climate, people are finally starting to listen to my side of the story and give weight to what women are going through, and so on and so forth. But one thing she said that disturbed me is she is like, I don't want to be seen as a victim. I don't want to play the victim. And I don't understand this anti-victim mentality. Like, it's so bad to be a victim. It's so wrong to be a victim. And I never see the level of condemnation and hostility towards victimizers as I see towards people who acknowledge that they're being victimized. I am a victim of Western imperialism, global white domination, of racism. I am victimized by agencies and institutions of this nation. My people are victimized. I have no problems and no qualms about saying that. Yes, I am victimized, and I seek justice. I seek recourse. I seek retribution. Why is when black people are ashamed, when we get victimized, we feel ashamed, and the victimizers just parade in the streets like they're okay? And then accuse us, you have a victim mentality. No, I have been subjected to victimization. I have been exploited. I have been subjected to racism. My resources, my labor, my lands have been stolen. What the hell are you talking about? Ain't no shame on my side. I go bust somebody in the head with a brick, and they're supposed to be shamed? And I'm supposed to tell them, well, you have a victim mentality? No, you have a split head from this brick I just hit you with. You are a victim. And don't let nobody shame you for being a victim. Shame the victimizer. And we have a woman who was drugged and sexually assaulted, who's like trying to duck the victim label. You are a victim, sister, and there's no shame to that. And that's a lot of time where there's so much victimization going on because people are like, man, I'm the victim. I should feel bad. I should feel ashamed. I should, not burden other people with my negativity. I was raped, but I don't. And that's another thing she said. She was like, I don't want to be consumed by anger. I don't want to be seen as angry. I don't want to be. I was raped. I don't want to be seen as a victim, and I don't want to come off as angry. That's re-victimizing. I'm mad as hell. I'm mad for you, sis. I'm angry for you, and I want to be seen as angry. And women feeling like they can't be saved, can't be vulnerable, can't be victims, can't be angry about their vulnerability and victimization. That is a mind warp. That is dehumanizing. I went to a relative's house and accidentally stepped. She had one of them little Shih Tzu dogs, and I stepped on it. Didn't see it. And that dog was pissed. And that dog growled at me and stayed away from me. That dog had no qualms like, yo, you did me an injustice. It was a purely an accident. And that dog has more, what they call it, integrity. Has more of a sense of self. It's like, if I am done wrong, I have a right to growl, to be pissed off, to bite you, and to hold on for the rest of the time that dog lived. That dog did not like me for that one incident. She had two dogs. One of the dogs, both little Shih Tzus. One dog would come up and greet me when I come around. That other dog was like, nah, I'll never forgive you for this. You stepped on me. How dare you? So you have human beings who have been violated, who don't want to express negative. There's no such thing as a negative emotion. Hatred is not worse than love. The only thing you can do with emotion is inappropriately apply the emotion. Hatred is as necessary and vital and affirming as love. Anger is as necessary and affirming as happiness. You wouldn't have evolved the capacity for hatred and anger if it wasn't necessary and central to our survival and well-being. And let me tell y'all another thing that these people hustle y'all with. There is no scientific correlation between negative feelings and ill health. The only thing you can do, if you are victimized and you walk around saying, hey, I'm going to keep positive, you're being re-victimized. You are dehumanizing yourself. You're not obligated to be positive. You're not obligated to be happy. And you're not obligated to downplay your victimhood. And if other people are uncomfortable with your victimhood, is uncomfortable with what you've endured and you suffer, that's their problem, not yours. And the way with emotions, if you have a so-called emotion, the only way your emotion can be negative if it's wrongly applied, if it's wrongly interpreted. So if I walk out the door now and I see a woman dressed in a way I don't think she should be dressed, I have an opinion about how a woman should or shouldn't dress. Because I'm like the opposite of the moralist. But if I look at this woman dressed in such a provocative way on the street, this pisses me off. Now that's a negative emotion. The reason it's a negative emotion is because it's ill applied. Now if I walk down the street and say, look at this homeless man, this homeless black man laying in the street, doesn't have resources, and I pass 3 vacant apartment condos and houses just on this one block, and there's people on the street that don't have a place to stay, and I am a fully formed, fully developed human being. My pineal gland is not calcified. Therefore, this enrages me that we have people in the street without adequate resources to live dignified life. I'm pissed off. That is a positive emotion. That is an appropriate, therefore, positive response. A woman walking out in the middle of summer in a halter top and some cut off short shorts, and that angers me, that's a negative emotion. Seeing people suffering unjustly, that angers me, enrages me, something that I hold on to. And I see these victims, and I see these parasitic exploiters, that enrages me. That is a positive emotion. That is an appropriate emotion that should provoke appropriate action. Get it? It works for love too. This man is an abuser. This man is a parasite. This man is a horrible, horrendous person. But I love him. Therefore, your love, that's a negative emotion. Right? But this brother is a freedom fighter. This brother's righteous, upstanding, woo, 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 all the good stuff, a black king, whatever. And I love him. That's a positive emotion. There is no hierarchy of emotions. There's either appropriate or inappropriate response to stimulus. Stimulus, what I see, what I hear, what I taste, what I touch. How do I respond to it? Certain things should evoke positive biochemical responses, quote unquote. Other things should attract you to things, what you're attracted to versus what repels you. All of that, there's really no hierarchy in there. So this hustle, literally people are making billions of dollars every year doing this positivity hustle. There was some Christian asshole that talks about don't complain and would sell these bracelets, no complaining. And you got people being subjected to all the worst atrocities you can imagine. I'm not going to complain. The hell you shouldn't. You are mentally insane. They're trying to literally induce psychopathy in people, trying to develop delusions of grandeur in people to set them up for further exploitation. So be a complainer, be a victim, be pissed off, and be unashamed. And if someone comes to you and say, why are you pissed off? And you have a valid reason to be pissed off, and they try to tell you, oh, you're being negative energy, kick them in their damn shin. And it's like, you better not frown either. That's positive. You all positive. Kick them in their shin, chop them in their throat, take their wallet and say, oh, keep radiating positive energy, you dummy. And the main people that talk about be positive, have a victim mentality, you still one of their cough drops. They call the police on you and show up on all the court dates. They full of it. They're lying and they're trying to compound your victimization. And when you're angry, don't run from it. Go through it and come out the other end. You'll be better off for it. Oh, they did me wrong. I'm not going to harbor feelings. Harbor them damn feelings. I'm telling you, everything you told is a lie. So it really pisses me off. Charlemagne has been behaving this way, and he's shown disregard, hostility, indifference, contempt for black women throughout his career. And things tend to add up. And I want the truth to come out. If the brother's exonerated, so be it. I'd be the first one to say it on this show. But it don't smell too good. It don't sound too good. But from what I know, I don't think he can be exonerated because my thing is self-exposure. I ain't gonna believe what the white cops say about you, what the white courts say about you, what the white prosecutors, what the white system says. I ain't gonna believe it. They told me Garvey was a con man. They told me that Malcolm X was a hater, full of hate and just wanted to kill all white people. They told me too many lies. They told me Columbus discovered America. So I take anything the system says. They put a brother in cuffs, I'm more likely he's innocent. And depending on his crime, he's innocent even if proven guilty. Because like I said, you're under oppression. So certain crimes, you steal some bread, you stealing food, you hooking up some illegal cable, that's reparations. So you're even innocent even. So even if you're found guilty, you're still innocent in my eyes. But if you convict yourself, like Cosby, you go around and you play agent of misery, agent of white domination, you subvert the interest of your people, you lie on your people on the global stage, you convicted yourself. Self-exposure. I'm a big believer and acceptor of self-exposure. So when you expose yourself to be a predator, when you expose yourself to be anti-black, when you expose yourself to be subversive to the interest and well-being of our people, when you try and convict yourself, confess your own crimes to us through your own mouth. So I don't care what the court says. I don't care if he keeps his shows based on what he said. Charlemagne is a sexual predator. Anyway, let's get to the topic. Enough of that. I'm not a big fan of that dude. And I don't know why we keep elevating these people to positions of prominence. Or allowing the Western media to do that, to sell these people. What I want to talk about, the topic of today's show, believe it or not, is slave to the algorithm. And don't ask me this. The topic of today's show is slave to the algorithm, high-tech barbarism. And what I'm talking about, Chiam, what I'm dealing with here is the fact that we have entered, or we've been in since 93, 92, a new historical epoch, a new historical era. And a lot of people in the United States really believe that this is because, a brand new technology, internet, wireless technology, what they call it, liquid crystal display screens, and the compression of technology and algorithms and data collect, big data, the era of big data. They were like, we're in a whole new era. But what I found through researching this new algorithmic era is that it's no different than past eras. An algorithm is nothing more than a series of steps. It's mathematical computations that go step by step. And actually, algorithms are not new. I found that the oldest algorithm that was ever created was 300 BC. Now, again, you have to take this with a grain of salt. I think that 300 BC, that of course the Greco-Roman era, and that's when white folks like to pretty much tie things off. Anything before the Greco-Roman era was prehistory, even though there was more history that happened before the Greco-Roman era than now. In fact, Africans had built and collapsed, built, rebuilt, collapsed, and rebuilt again empires long before there was ever a Greek on the planet. You know, and so, but they like to suppress that history because it doesn't feed into their psychopathic insecurity to acknowledge the world prior to white domination. So, according to Western history, and I didn't care to dispel this because it's just not that relevant to my larger points, that the oldest algorithm known to human history came to from 300 BC. Lay floor tiles, and you want to calculate what is the best size floor tile to use to cover this space. You know, and I want to efficiently cut the tiles. I don't want to cut them too large where I'm going to be wasting a large amount. I don't want to cut them too small. So there's an algorithm where you can break down the floor. You know, you cover the floor space, systematically break down and cover the floor space. They will give you the maximum size of tile to cover that floor in the most efficient way. So you can have the largest size needed to reduce the amount of work, but it's small enough to reduce the level of waste. It's actually quite clever. So that's what an algorithm is. It's basically a calculation to help increase accuracy and efficiency of work, of a job. And algorithms are all around us. You use algorithms every day. But they're not just related to computers, but computers have taken algorithms, like many other things, like communication, to a whole nother level. So Google Maps operates off of algorithms. Computer animation operates off of a set of complex algorithms. Satellite imaging, dating sites. When they say, you know, we'll match you up with based on your profiles and based on your interests, we'll match you up with the best person. That's an algorithm. It's just a computation taking certain and facial imaging technology. You know how when you take a picture of someone and then Facebook comes and say, hey, is this your cousin Jasper? Like, damn, how Facebook? All they do is they scan the image and look for certain type of features, and they have a set of features. And after they get these 5 or 6 markers, they'll be like, okay, this is a face. And then we run this face through a larger database and say, this is not only a face, a human face, this is the face of this particular person. Sometimes they're off, you know. Sometimes it's kind of funny. I've been tagged in photos where it ain't me. and it's somebody that looks like me, so it's not accurate, but it's becoming more accurate and efficient. And they're even using algorithms to create organisms, to use DNA down to the molecular level to create chemicals, new chemicals in organisms. Mainly, they say the uses for the bio algorithms are for creating pharmaceuticals to help cure disease, right? But the real purpose of this is to generate profit. And if it cures disease or creates disease, if it can generate profit, that's the main goal. And one thing that is absent from algorithm is ethics and morality. Today, and now they're finally saying that since technology is so pervasive and the people who are in the tech industry have so much power, they want them to start to mandate that computer science programs across the country begin to mandate that computer science specialists include in all STEM programs ethics Like when I went and I became a radiographer, and I went to school for 2 years to become a licensed radiographer, and I had to take a medical ethics class that really had nothing to do with human anatomy, human physiology, diagnostics, radiant physics, all the things that I had to take in order to execute my job. I had to take medical ethics as a supplement to that. So they tell you how to do your job, and then they also teach you how not to do your job, how not to abuse your position of authority over others. And especially when you're working with people who are sick or injured, they tend to be very malleable. They're very vulnerable, and they tend to listen to what you tell them. Moving on. And there's another book, if you want to read. This is one book that I came across that even got me thinking of, called Weapons of Math Destruction by the mathematician, an MIT mathematician by the name of Cathy O'Neil. Very brilliant lady with some good insight. But one thing that really bothered me about this whole high-tech new era, the digital age, and the emergence of people like the multi-billionaire from Bill Gates, Bezos, Elon Musk, is that everyone's like, this is a new era. This is a new time, a new age, a new technology. And it's going to bring about a new way of being, a new way of relating one to each other, and a new economy, the gig economy. It's going to free workers and blah, blah, blah. And that's utter nonsense. What's so disturbing about the technological era is about not what's new about it, but what's exactly the same. And so I want to share with you a historical overview. Because what we have now are the new barons, the new people who are the wealthiest people in the world, who dictate everything else in the world. From when we went over, you go back and listen to my show on dialectical and historical materialism. The people who control the means of production run culture, education, religion, everything else falls under that. And now the means of production is data. Big data. And so these are the new barons. And we were told in the new world, coming to the new world, the era of barons is over. The era of oligarchs, the era of kings, the era of monarchs is done. We're in the age of democracy, of sovereignty, sovereign citizens, of human rights. You have your own rights, Bill of Rights. A king cannot dictate to you how to live and die. No tyrant can come and take your resources, so on and so forth. And barons, tycoons, their days are done. And everybody, even you, everybody's a capitalist. Everybody, I can go take my little $35 and go on the internet and buy me some stock, and I could be a member of the stock market. I could be a petty capitalist. It's all a lie. It's a hustle. It's marketing. And let's look at the word baron. The word baron is an old German word meaning man. Man is the rule. And if you look at the old European Orthodox Church, the Catholic tradition, they said that man is to have dominion over earth. Man is to rule. And the earliest stages of the establishment of European society was based strictly on barbarism. He with the biggest axe, he with the biggest club, he with the broadest shoulders. You rule. You don't rule because you're the most intelligent. You don't rule because you're the most educated. You don't rule because you're the most committed to the well-being of the society. You rule because you have the greatest capacity to kill. Whoever had the greatest capacity to kill in Eurocentric society was the ruler. Nobody questioned it. Because when you question it, you get your head split. So this is a culture, this is a society, this is an economy, this is a governing system based on the greatest capacity to kill. And this mentality, this governing system, over the course of, they say about 24, give or take, depending on your historical timeline, 3,200 years, came to take over the world. This was not the way of the world. If you read pre-colonial history of most other places, this is not how the world was governed. And Europeans even made notes in their travel journals that when we bring our new way of governance, our new standard of power to the world, we can take over the world, because these people are not oriented towards perpetual warfare. They don't have the capacity or the will or the drive for perpetual warfare. And like Christopher Columbus, when he saw the Arawaks, the Kalinagos, the Incans, he said these people will be easy to conquer. because they're not war oriented towards war. And since war is our permanent state of being, we will take it over. So the word baron means man or warrior. But the word came to be known as rulers. But barons were a very particular type of rulers. In Europe, because this is all coming out of European culture, this modern technological era, white people will tell you this is our culture. Like Trump just said, this is our culture, make America great again. And he even said that there's too many Arabs and Africans immigrating to Europe. And he said that Germany is losing its culture. A U.S. president said due to immigration, Germany is losing its culture. And one thing I am vexed about is that African people, we live under European culture. We live under European colonialism. We are subjects of European empires, but we know very little about their culture. When we think of white culture, we jokingly say casserole with raisins. We think of Britney Spears and Taylor Swift. We very seldom really examine European economic, political, culture, the European, the Western mentality, the Western evolution, political evolution. And in fact, we have a lot of black militants to say, don't read white folks. Don't pay no attention to white folks. And they only want to read Dr. Clark. They only want to read Amos Wilson. And Amos Wilson and Dr. Clark had very good, and even Dr. Marimba Ani, one of the best evaluations of Western culture. But if you look at their bibliographies, they're referencing white folks. I think one of the best scholars, I got my undergrad in political science. I graduated with honors. And if you are studying political science, you are studying Plato, Platonic philosophy. You're studying what they call the canon. And the canon are these fundamental works of European politics, European governance, the philosophies and idea on how to organize society, the social contract. So you're going to read Rousseau. You're going to read a lot of Rousseau. You're going to read a lot of Hobbes. You're going to read a lot of, believe it or not, Woodrow Wilson, the first true political scientist in the United States. And the Platonic philosophy of governance, of hierarchy. You're going to read that. And in all my years studying political science, I never got a better assessment of the Platonic ideology, the Platonic mentality than from Dr. Marimba Ani. So black folks know it, but if you look at their bibliography, they reading white folks. And I'm not saying, yeah, that's great books. I encourage them. I read them, but I also say, check out the source material. We have to understand it if we're going to counter it. A lot of black folks that study it, they study it and internalize it. But you got to know it if you're going to live it. You got to know it if you're going to subvert it. But anyway, in the era of the barons, because we live under barons now, and barons used to be rulers that were not noble and that were not religious. And the noble is bloodline, kings, the descendant of kings and queens. And there were a lot of people who were in power, but they didn't have royal blood. And then you had the religious people, the people who were ordained by God under mainly first the Catholic Church, and then after the Protestant Revelation, then the Anglican Church, and the various the Calvinist sects. But for a long time, it was just the Catholics. The Catholics ran things. And so then there was another class that came about because there wasn't, as the European empires expanded, as they grew, as they took power, they took territory. As their rivals emerged, other kings and noblemen emerged to challenge. The kings just didn't have the resources to govern everything. So they looked back to, especially after the Renaissance, they looked back to the Romans and how the Romans structured their empire. So the emperor ran everything, but the emperor would have these governors and people who weren't emperors, who didn't have the noble blood, who were not the divine rulers that the emperor was. He would appoint people and give them special status and have them rule the emperor's territory on his behalf in his absence. And so when the emperor is not here, I am the law. And I speak for the emperor, and the emperor speaks for our gods. And so the European noblemen will be basically, Europe was ran by gangs, set tripping. And so they would go around bashing people, and they find peasants and serfs and take their stuff, leave them with enough, just barely enough to survive on so they can go back to work. If you ever see the movie Ants, Woody Allen voices the main character. But I think J-Lo and Sylvester Stallone, it's a movie that kind of breaks that down, where the grasshoppers were the nobles and the ants were the serf. And the grasshoppers like, listen, we're going to take all your resources, leave you just enough to survive through the winter so that you can repeat the cycle of growing and working for us. And we do little to no work, but the work we do is bashing your head if you don't. We're head bashers and you're farmers. Really interesting, really good movie. You know, if you're not part of like some Woody Allen boycott or something. But beyond that, you had the barons. The first barons emerged when the European gangs. I'm no longer going to be a barbarian. I'm no longer going to run into these little hamlets and villages, rape women, pillage, take the crops, burn, kill a few men to show the people I don't mess around. So the next time I come, they'll just break themselves without me having to ask. And then I go back to my cave, but it's like, I don't like this cave. I want to get a castle, and I want some herbs, and I want to, formalize this system of theft. I want to legitimize this system of theft. So I go, and then they went to the monks, they went to the church and say, hey, crown me king. Say God wants me to rule the world. And so then there was this ongoing relationship between the church and the monarchy. And then they were like, well, the territory is too much. And there aren't enough monks, and there aren't enough noblemen. I can't, rape enough women to have enough sons in order to go. So we're going to appoint certain people who are not of religious calling or noble blood. They will be the barons. They will be the what do they call the dukes, earls. But a lot of them had royal blood, and some of them didn't. Some people would buy their duke or their knighthood. But the first barons that emerged in history, the first Zuckerbergs, the first Bill Gates were called land barons, because that was the wealth of the ancient times, land. And land is where you grew food and territory. And also when you defended territory, you were able to hold rival kingdoms at bay, rival gangs encroaching on your territory, set tripping. And so the land barons were tasked with protecting that section of territory and extracting wealth from that section of territory. And the land barons owned all of the workers in that area during the feudal ages. And so in each of these barons, or each of these industries, these new epochs built off of the next. So the first source of wealth was land, right? And after you had land, and you had what came after that? The shipping barons, the shipping industry. Because after you conquered territory, you went overseas, and this is a historical overview. And there's a book, The Rise and Fall of Empires, that kind of gives it more detail. But it's not the best book, but I mean, it kind of gives the nuts and bolts, but a lot of the interpretation. But after that, you had the shipping barons. And this is where exploitation and barbarism first got, during the shipping baron eras. The shipbuilders and the people who would transport things across land with caravans and across the seas. This is when the LLC was first founded, the Limited Liability Corporation. And without the Limited Liability Corporation, we would not have capitalism. And that's what separates mercantilism, feudalism from capitalism. This one thing that a woman, she is woman, hear her roar, Queen Elizabeth chartered the first Limited Liability Corporation in 1600 to the British East India Company, which was one of the very first private industries, global private industry. I think it was the first. Prior to the East India Company, and you had the British, the Dutch East India, you had these various holdings of the East India Company, where people could buy shares and holdings in this company. This Queen Elizabeth, and I don't know, the feminists don't really give her just due, because they like to pretend like white women weren't full-on participants in the conquest and enslavement of the world and the theft of the world's resources. But if feminists were honest, the noble Queen Elizabeth and founder of the Limited Liability Corporation, chartered the first corporation in human history in the 1600s, should be a feminist icon. But again, because she was a colonizer and enslaver and the criminal offense of genocide, in which other feminists strive to be, they just like to keep it on the down low. But anyway, prior to the East India Company, all of these foreign holdings were state operations. So the Dutch had the monopoly on the spice trade, and other, the church had certain monopolies on territories, but there were no companies. The companies back then, companies were wood shops. I'm a cobbler, I'm a hat maker, I'm a seamstress. But there weren't these major industries until, and also, without limited liability, if you got sued or if you had some type of catastrophe, that was it. They'd wipe you out. So you had all these small, what they call cottage industries, which the economy is returning to in certain ways. So then you had the shipping barons. And the land barons and the shipping barons had undue power over the people. They exploited the labor of the masses. And the land barons exploited the serfs. And then at the time of the 1600s, a new class of people emerged who were ran off the land. Because the land baron said, well, I have all these peasants on my land, these slaves, and the slave master, whether it's a nobleman's territory in feudal Europe or a southern plantation in the New World, they knew they had to, listen, I am responsible for feeding, clothing, and shelter. Even if it's inadequate shelter, even if it's tattered clothing, and even if it's rancid, rotten, throwaway food, I'm responsible for sustaining the life of my slaves, my serfs, my peasants. And so many noblemen found out, instead of having a million serfs living on my territory, I can go get a million head of cattle or a million sheep and just have a few hundred serfs oversee these sheep. And so I'd rather have sheep on my land than peasants growing a plot. I'd rather graze cattle. I'd rather have loggers on my land. That's when accumulation, instead of just having land was power, accumulating gold and wealth became power. And so they drove many of the peasants off the land. It's like, I don't need you no more. Just like when slavery was abolished, quote unquote, and black folks were emancipated, they ran us out of the South. They happened in Europe. Like I said, nothing white folks did to us they hadn't already done to themselves several times over. That's why we can never say, oh, they're doing it because we're black. No, they're doing it because they're white. They're not doing it because we're black. We're white folks, white women, white men have not been exempted from white aggression, white enslavement, white exploitation, and even white genocide. The number one threat to white people today and then are the white elites. But white people are too dumb to see it that way. And until they wise up, they're going to be under perpetual threat too. But I digress. So the land barons ran these people off the land, and people was like, well, I used to build my house from the ground up. I used thatch, I'd use lumber, harvested scrap wood, and I built myself a home. And I built a little fence, and I'd have a goat or some livestock, a couple of heads of livestock. And I'd have a little plot of land, and I'd grow that land. I'd give 70% of my harvest to the landlord, and I'd keep 70% of the harvest. So I'd feed myself, and my wife, we'd use our sheep, or we'd trade for clothing. And that's how I lived. It was a pretty self-sufficient lifestyle, and you knew, and you gave the baron 70% of your food, because the baron would say, listen, there could be hordes of criminals and foreigners come and take your land and kill you. So I protect you. I control the military, the police. I control the knights. I can call on the king, the central government, to bring the full forces of the kingdom to defend you. So in order to protect you, I need you to bow to me and pay taxes to me. Sound like the same hustle. The cops come to you and be like, do you want gangbangers running through your hood? Then you got to pay us. But the very people you pay to protect you are your main threat. Your protectors are your greatest threat. And if you don't give them the taxes, if you don't pay them your 1/3 of your harvest, or 2/3 or 3/4 of your harvest, if you don't pay them your taxes, they will come and hurt you. The very people that said, I'm here to protect you, will be the people that harm you. Extortion. Same system. from feudal Europe to modern America. White folks ain't changed that. The fundamental underlying structures of the society. And without these foundations of the land barons and the shipping barons, you wouldn't have the tech barons that we have today. And so after the shipping came, you had land. And then land, they kept accumulating land. Like Abraham Lincoln said, all the European wants is a plot of land and the land adjacent to that land, which means they want everything. Or as Chris Hedges said, the only one thing the capitalists want, and just one thing, more. Nothing more, nothing less. They want more. And so then you had the finance barons, who emerged also in the 1600s, in the mid and late 1600s. The very first central bank was established, the Riksbank Bank in Sweden in 1668, which brought about, and so the land barons who had all this land and wealth, and the shipping barons who had all this new wealth, they just couldn't keep it in a vault, like the king would have a vault in the bottom of his castle. And then with the advent of the LLC in the early 1600s, had people who were able to make investments and holding. You needed accounting for that. And you're the British East Company, the East Indian Company, the Dutch East Indian Company is in the United States. Hustling tea is in Africa. Raping resources in India, and transporting slaves. There's a lot of commerce moving all around the so-called New World. So that's when the finance industry came, and you had finance barons. And this is when we really start to know people by name. The Goldman Sachs, the Rothschilds, the Oppenheim people, that's where they emerged, the finance industry. And you had finance barons. And so every new industry, whether it's just agriculture, it's just sustenance farming, you had the land barons. And then as territory expanded and you needed to move goods and services around, then you had the shipping barons and the large shipping companies. And then of course elites. And of course this is all work. The barons didn't work the land barons didn't have dirty fingernails and grow the damn turnips. The shipping barons didn't work in the shipyard and built the transport ships. They weren't out on the ships with rats chewing at you when you sleep and the scurvy. And then the finance barons, they didn't do the work. You kick in the door of the bank, it's not going to be Goldman Sachs, it's not going to be Rothschilds with the gun to defend the vault. It's going to be commoners putting their life, driving the armored vehicles. And they used to have armored carriages. And when Robin Hood jumps out and shoots an arrow through the neck, it's not going to be the neck of one of the elites. Through all of those times, it was the barons on top exploiting the labor of the people. And it took more than another 100 years after the finding of the finance industry for somebody like Marx to come along and be like, wait a second. This is not a just way to do things. Why are these people at the top? And then so one of the fifth one, where the barons were just the first was were the enforcers. The enforcers for the royal and the religious rulers. So they just would carry out the law. 1, then 2, the land barons. 3, shipping barons. 4, finance barons. And then in the New World, when the United States, some of the first barons in the United States were the railroad barons. And again, we know the Vanderbilts, the Harringtons, the Goulds, the Huntingtons. And these are families to this day are rich. Now again, the railroad barons, and just like the land barons, they were given the land by the king, welfare. The shipping barons were given charters by the kings, right? And they were given defense. Their trade routes and their travel routes were defended by the military, which is welfare. They didn't pay for the military. The citizens were taxed to pay for the military. Welfare. Again, the finance barons, the local police forces and military, again, the local infrastructure, the local roads set up the ability for the finance barons to operate. Then the railroad barons. It is said that over 180 million acres was given away free of charge. When you found a rail line and you were going to run a rail line through U.S. territory, on both sides of that rail line for 5 miles was free land given to the railroads. Welfare. That's another thing I had stated that I've yet to find anybody challenge. There isn't one source of wealth, corporate or private family wealth, that is not based on massive welfare, massive public inputs. Not one industry could survive. They talk about, oh, we want to reduce the size of the government. No, what they want to do is further mobilize the resources of the state to serve the elites. And then you got commoners like, I don't like the government. Government's in my way. You damn fool. The Koch brothers, Jeff Bezos, any name a wealthy baron, a tycoon, a capitalist that ain't on the government teat. And what is the government? The government is our collective resources that the government takes from us by force if necessary in order to sustain the apparatus of the state. We have no say in the matter. And then we give up what level of influence we have over the state. And we got black leaders, don't vote, voting don't change, with all this stupid, childish, reactionary conclusions about governance, about taxation, about the nature and how the economy functions. So anyway, the railroad was also given free land, interest-free financing from the state, and full-on military protection. Remember, Buffalo Soldier, Dreadlock Rasta, they were protecting the rail lines. And then there was slave labor. They would Shanghai. They bring the Chinamen here. They had Africans working on the east and Asian Chinese migrants Shanghai. They would come here for work contract, and then the Chinese like, well, we fulfilled our end of the contract. It's time to pay us. And like, well, I don't think I'm gonna pay you. How about I just slit your damn throat? How about I lynch you? One of the biggest race riots in the U.S. history was on the West Coast by Chinese migrants because they weren't getting paid. They would work these people to death, and the few people that survived still didn't get paid. They would just murder them and lynch them on some trumped up rape allegations if they bothered to even pretend like, oh, it's for the dignity of the white woman. That was one of the white man's favorite excuses to engage in atrocities, protecting the dignity of white women. And again, ask your feminist sisters, black women, about that history. So the railroad barons built some of the biggest familial wealth, some of the names, and then, of course, all of these built. If it wasn't for the land barons, if it wasn't for the shipping barons, if it wasn't for the finance barons, you wouldn't have the railroad barons. And built a parallel with them is the plantation barons. There was a time, if you read Dr. Claude Anderson, Black Labor, White Wealth, all the wealth of the United States was in the South. And one of the primary agendas of the Civil War was to transfer wealth from the South back to the North. The carpetbaggers. That's one of the reasons why the Southern white men were like, listen, you want to free the slaves? Fine. But here's the thing. Many of the slaves were financed by the finance barons. Many people bought slaves on loans. And they said, if you want to free these slaves that I paid for with money from Wall Street, give me back my damn money. Look at it this way. Let's say you go to an auto dealer tomorrow and you go buy yourself a car. Let's say y'all doing good. So you get you and your wife a car because y'all work hard and your swag matches her swag and her swag matches y'all swag. So y'all go buy 2 Lexuses. And you, the big man, you buy the Lexus SUV and you get her a Lexus coupe. And y'all sign a contract to pay this stuff off. You put down the down payment, and you got to make these monthly 5-year payments. And you just put all this money up, and you borrow the money from wherever. Wells Fargo, Citibank, because they love giving us car loans, right? And then 2 weeks after you didn't put down the money for this car loan, you didn't put up your down payment, or let's say you bought the car outright, but more likely than not, you're obligated to pay off this bank for the money you borrowed from this bank to buy these 2 nice cars. And then let's say Bernie Sanders was elected president, and he said, we're going to have an ecological society. We're going to outlaw cars. No more cars on roads. Banned. And you're like, whoa, wait. Okay, fine. I can't drive my car anymore. Are you going to compensate me? Are you going to compensate me? Because I'm in debt behind this car, and plus the money I already put up for this car, and not only just the money I put up for the car, my life is oriented around this car. I can't get to work without this car. I can't, do my leisure. My whole life is oriented around having access to a car. How will you make me whole if you're going to outlaw cars? And then Bernie says, well, figure it out yourself. You'd have a civil war. Forget the morality of it, just the mechanics of it. These white people are like, our whole lives are, when we're in the finance, the northern financiers, the northern shipping companies, the Harrimans, the railroad companies that help to transport the goods that the slaves harvested. They were like, listen, there's a whole infrastructure set up around having Africans enslaved, and we done made big money. We're the richest people in the country. You're going to tell us we can't what? That's what the Civil War was about. And now Europe avoided a civil war because Europe said, we're going to buy the slaves from you. We're not going to free the slaves. We're going to buy them from you and then ban any further purchases. So Europe didn't have the same war because Europe gave monetary, like you standing there, somebody, your master, standing over you, counting money, like you're free, nigger, get out of here. Counting money and don't give you a dime of it. So Africans had every reason to be pissed off, still do to this day. But the British enslavers, the Dutch enslavers, the French enslavers, they figured it out. Like, listen, no, you got to pay these people. You're going to transform their way of life. So then the Europeans had the money, but eventually the Southerners were paid off. They told the Southerners, listen, we'll allow you to re-enslave the blacks so you can transition from a plantation, from a slave economy into a market economy. We'll allow you to do the Jim Crow thing, and you can set up a system called sharecropping. So the slave, what they did, instead of giving them monetary compensation, they allowed them to re-enslave our ancestors for another century or more in order and gave them land and political autonomy to rebuild. So there was eventually compensation for the landed gentry, so the plantation. And then what we also overlook, many industries that grew out of the slave, like the U.S. insurance industry, the transportation industry, even the fashion industry, cotton. Remember, we was picking a lot of cotton. Brooks Brothers, high-end fashion suits. Brooks Brothers got started making low-quality, uncomfortable, itchy clothing for slaves. That's what the Brooks Brothers did. They sold a lot of clothing to plantation owners who had to clothe these savages. The University of Virginia, founded by Thomas Jefferson, slave money. So that's also the era where the barons get involved in what they call philanthropy. We have so much money, we can't consume it all. So instead of just using the money for consumption and making our lives comfortable, we'll use our money to influence the larger society. And then after that, after the Civil War, and the coming out of the first and being in the full throes of the first industrial revolutions, you have the emergence of the oil barons. And again, these are a lot of familiar names. Jerry Jones, over the Dallas Cowboys, the Getty family, the Mellon family, the Koch brothers, the Rockefellers, of course. And Rockefellers got a foot in the finance baron and a oil baron. But the oil baron, because the United States used to be the #1 oil producer in the world. The United States used to be Saudi Arabia. And of course, the United States sucked most of its easily accessed sweet crude, sucked itself dry. And so then, and I'm going to try to pick up the pace here. You had the industrial barons, the steel mining manufacturing Vanderbilts, for Carnegie. And all these epochs, all these new technologies that created this new arena of revenue, for all of them, every single one of them, it's the same relationship. A few people at the top exploiting, hyper exploitation of the masses at the bottom. And the people who get all the money, like Nelson Rockefeller, he wasn't out on the rigs. The plantation barons, they weren't out there picking cotton. The railroad barons, they were not out there laying the trusses and getting damaged. Even my grandfather and his father, 2 generations of railroad workers. And my great grandfather, I never knew his whole hand was mutilated. making wealth for one of these rich white baron families to bring home crumbs to his home under Jim Crow. Shout out to Grandpa Boy, I miss you. So then you had the industrial band, the Ford, the Carnegies, the Vanderbilts. They took philanthropy to a whole nother level. This was in the era, this is the era of Marxist analysis. This is the era of anarchism, syndicalism, of communism, of socialism, where the workers is like after generations and generations of all these barons, and every time a new technology comes, you tell the masses, this is a new day. We have advances in the printing press, advances in shipping technology, advances in the railroad, advances in agriculture. It's a new day for humanity, and they promise to share the wealth that's generated by this new technology, these new discoveries with everybody. And you see that every single time it goes to the 1%, and the masses do all the work. They get all the mangled bones and bodies, crushed bodies. They dine in the sweatshops. They're dying and burning and crushed in the mines, and they don't share. The barons hoard the wealth every single time, and it goes from family after family. They pass it down from family to family. And even when the barons, the mercantile class, overthrew the monarchy and established the democracies, they in the same hustle. Oh, there are no more kings. These are democratic states. Everyone will have a say in how things are governed. Everybody will have an opportunity to compete and achieve, and it falls down the same way. The democratic rulers turned out to be just as corrupt and greedy and savage as the monarchical rulers. So after a while, it finally figured out you had slave rebellions, you had peasant uprisings, and then you had a communist revolution. And that's when the barons, you'll find that the industrial and oil barons, they started establishing these foundations and think tanks and charities. The Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Mellon Foundation, and they give money and give crumbs in order to keep people tied into the system, in order to give this capitalist system legitimacy. John D. Rockefeller would walk around and give nickels to children, and people would run. Ever he'd walk up to the street, all these children would run up to him, and he'd pass out nickels and dimes to little children. And they're like, look at this sweet old man when his hands are dripping in blood. The richest man in history. They said he was worth over $400 billion at the height, if you adjust for inflation. Worth over $400 billion at the time of his death, at the height of his wealth. And they thought he was this kindly old man, and they would say, okay, we're going to fund operas and classical music concerts, and we're going to fund barnyard dances, and we're going to fund Bible printings and send Bibles all over the world, just like the Saudi oil family sending Qurans all over the world while they rape the world, pollute the world. So the second industrial revolution of 1870 saw the Vanderbilts, the Ford, the Carnegies, all these industrial barons, and all this new manufacturing techniques and technology, the emergence of the assembly line and mass production, mass consumption. And the people were like, this will be a new day. I can buy a car. And we didn't know. We thought the car would be, they'd show us, oh, the cars mean you're going to take your family and head out west and enjoy the great outdoors, the great open, free America. When the car was like, no, you're going to be stuck in traffic driving your ass to a sweatshop. The car is going to set you up for greater exploitation. Just like the cell phone. Oh, freedom, I can talk to people all over the world. No, you're going to be talking to your boss 24/7 on the clock, unpaid. After the industrial barons, then you had the weapons barons. In the post-World War, between World War I and World War II, preparing for the wars to end all wars. That's why you saw, and this is when, with the weapons industry, when before, in the oil, in the industry, manufacturing, mining, railroad, and plantation, they had big names. These men like to walk around in top hats and tails and show, yes, I am a man, like Rockefeller. He was a celebrity. He was a freaking rock star. Everybody knew who Rockefeller was. Some people had pictures of this decrepit devil up, right? Then you had the weapons industry. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, General Dynamics, and the people who run these corporations don't like to put their name out there. The weapons barons for the weapons industry. which is one of the biggest welfare cheats, one of the biggest welfare recipients. In fact, Trump's whole trip to Western Europe was nothing but talking about he wants NATO to increase their input. That's nothing but him being a damn buck boy, being a shine boy, being a damn PR man who's supposed to be our representatives. He over there trying to generate more profits for the weapons industry. Instead of talking about the European needs to pay more than NATO, he should be, number one, if not dissolving NATO, reducing U.S. military expenditures. Well, instead of having them bring their expenditures up, why not bring U.S. expenditures down? Notice he never says that, oh, we pay so much and you pay so little. I mean, the thing to do that, you don't have to ask them permission. You're saying we're going to reduce our level. We're going to cut in half our expenditures for NATO. He don't say that. He said, no, y'all pay more because the U.S. weapons industry is on his ass. Get that money, ho. Kick up my money, ho. But then even when you look, I said, like, who runs Boeing? Because I hear Boeing, I don't hear any name associated with it. The top shareholder is this guy named James McNeary. Ever heard of James McNeary Jr., Dennis Muhlenberg, McAllister's? These are the people. And then when you go to find the biggest weapons manufacturing, who is the number one shareholder in Lockheed Martin? State Street Corp. And so it's another level. And I'm like, then I'm supposed to go and research State Street Corp and find out who are the shareholders. And then it's all these levels. So they don't even want to be associated with their product. General Dynamics, General Electric, and a lot of these good, positive corporations also have military and intelligence industry contracts. And at that same time, you'll notice that the CEOs and the barons are told, look, take a step back. Let the company logo be your thing. So you never see, like one of the Walmart, the biggest employer in the United States, one of the Walton families could be walking down the street. Most people wouldn't recognize them. Fall back. It used to be if you saw a Vanderbilt, you knew it was a Vanderbilt. If you saw a Rothschild, you knew it was a Rothschild. Now they don't want to be known. So the Waltons, you know, unless you're in the industry, you don't know. They could be walking down the street, richest people in the richest family in the United States, your boss, and don't even recognize them. That's because in the 1930s, you had the emergence of the PR industry and the PR band. Edward Bernays was like, listen, the people are restless. You got the communist revolution, you got socialism, you got anarcho-syndicalism, now you got the union movements, you got a lot of fight back since the very barren system, since the first European established the first system of labor exploitation. You've always had resistance, but now the people are getting more organized and we got technologies, telephones, and literacy is going up, so we can't just tell them God wants them to live a life of suffering and when you die, you'll have your rewards in heaven. That hustle it works, but it's not as effective. So now they came up with this PR thing. You have people like Lee Iacocca, who said if you run a corporation, you want the people that strip and racks the floors to be as loyal to the corporation as the people at the top. And it used to be like the boss couldn't be bothered with what the lower level workers said. You either do the job or we'll find someone who will do it. But now with labor unions and the resistance movements, we need to more indoctrinate people. So one time I was on the subway in New York and a girl saw an advertisement for Walmart. And she said to her friend, girl, look, we in the magazine. Because she was like, Walmart is me. So when Walmart do good, I do good. Even though, you know, I'm making, not making a minimum, a livable wage. Even though my labor, my life, and even though I don't have an environment of dignity, an environment that enriches me intellectually, socially, but I am Walmart. And then you start to see people that work for companies and they got the company mug, the company hat, the company logo on all their clothes. The company, well, I work for this Symphony Mobile X. In Kansas, and they gave me a winter coat with a big logo on the back. It was a nice coat, but I wasn't comfortable wearing it. Off the clock, I'll wear it on the clock. I'm not wearing this off the clock. I'm not advertising for you unless you pay me. You know, so now that's when this started to emerge, and people were just like, oh, it's known to have a little company pride. When before workers knew, you know, I'm only here to get what I got to get. But my interests and the interests of the boss do not align. My interests as an individual or as a community, the interests of the community and the interests of the company is like, no, we care about the community. Y'all seen those new commercials from Wells Fargo? And they got this black woman back in the 1800s, a black... Oh, go look up the new Wells Fargo commercials. after they got caught robbing people blind. The new Wells Fargo is just like the old Wells Fargo. I'm like, that's the most honest advertisement I ever heard in my life. The new Wells Fargo is the same as the old. The new system is the same as the old system. So you had the PR barons, public relation, and the media barons, Walt Disney. They wanted to sell people's fantasy. You know, that was the PR and media barons. You know, Ted Turner, where they had media and say, listen, at the height of the Great Depression, movie sales, the government went to Hollywood and they said, we want to show movies that are hopeful. We want to show people movies that that takes them away from the misery and the drudgery of their daily lives. We're going to subsidize the movie industry so you can just charge a nickel or a penny to see a movie. Lower movie ticket rates, and people could go there and escape from their reality. You know, people really walking around like they live in they feel like they're a Kardashian. Every day they're watching the Kardashian family, and they feel like they're just a cousin. Like, I've been in the Kardashian home, and they show this reality TV is fake as hell. VH1, which makes millions of dollars off of reality TV, then produces documentaries saying this is reality TV is fake as hell. These people ain't real. Y'all looking at Red Table Talk, looking at these multi-millionaires cry about their struggles, and black folks, black women, saying, oh, the Red Table, I love the Red Table Talks. And these multi-millionaires that don't live no life that's akin to you, that live off of exploitation, I'm damn sure, I could promise you, if we looked up the Will Smith family stock portfolio, they got stock in Lockheed Martin, Goldman Sachs, the very companies that are foreclosing on us, exploiting us, got sweatshops all overseas. Those are the companies that they have stock holdings in. And we're acting like them crying and snotting around a red table. We can relate to them. I can't believe commoners. At least in the past, the peasants knew they were peasants. The commoners knew they were commoners. All of us think we're just like on the verge of being millionaires. Every black person I know, any day now. As soon as I get this ideal off, as soon as I get this diploma, as soon as I get this little startup money, I'm going to be on my way and I'm going to be one of the elites. And no matter, the data keeps showing that you're going to die in. 90% of us are going to die in the class we were born into. And they also show, studies are showing, there's no multi-generational black wealth. So even if you hit the damn jackpot, your grandkids are going to start from the bottom, just like you did. So what's the point? Like I said, it's better to elevate as a class than to elevate as an individual. Class elevation is more sustainable than individual elevation. And you want to lay, but life is short, I guess. Yeah, y'all want to listen to Will Smith. But the PR, and let me tell you, the movie industry is public relations. Like I said, during economic downturns, they go to the government, the barons, the leaders go to Hollywood and say, make movies to give people hope. Make movies to show, you know, what's that movie, Pursuit of Happiness. That scumbag guy that made some money on Wall Street after sleeping in the subway with his son a couple of nights. Lying-ass movie starring Will Smith and his son. So whenever black folks is down and struggling, you know, they do mass incarceration, and then they got you going to watch the Shawshank Redemption. Whenever they want to go to war, they make these triumphant war movies. These warriors and soldiers at arms, brothers at arms, fighting for freedom. That's propaganda. And I'm cool with it. I enjoy the movies, but at least know, you know, ladies, you go out on a dinner with a dude, and you know it ain't because he wants to see you fed. He has ulterior motives. I ain't saying don't go to dinner, but don't fool yourself and think it's just about your nourishment. You know, he ain't putting that money on the table just because he wants to make sure you get the proper level of calories. There's ulterior motives. And I ain't saying you can't enjoy the dinner knowing this dude got ulterior motives. You might wanna get down with his motives. You might be your interests may align. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It just be like that. But don't psych yourself out. So when you go see a movie, it's like, oh, this was a good movie. I'm being propagandized. They're trying to sell me not just products. They're trying to sell me an idea. They're trying to sell me an outlook. And you have the media barons. Now those are barons, unlike the weapons industry barons. They like their name. They like being public figures. The Weinstein. What's dude's name? Spielberg. And now even brothers, that's where black people get to enter in. We got black media barons. Blacks got arts, sports and entertainment. And sports is entertainment, so blacks got entertainment. They let us play footsies. They let us, hang around in that industry. Now, we can't mess around with the weapons, shipping, land, serious land holding, oil, natural resources, mining industries. No, but if you want to have a hip-hop label, be a hip-hop mogul, have at it. We'll let you coloreds have fun. And then we come to, in this era, the tech barons. And the technological era came with the same lies, the same falsehoods, the same theft, the same exploitation as all the other barons. Oh, this is a new technology, a new day. And all the workers, oh yes, I'm going to join the tech economy. I'm going to drive me an Uber. I'm going to get on Fiverr. And I'm going to be my own boss. And here we are still being raped, economically raped, resource raped. Our government captured, the government, not our, I'm sorry. No disrespect. Malcolm X said never say our government, say the government captured. And they're like, well, no, this is a new technology, modernizing. You can communicate, blah, 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 travel, blah, blah, blah. And it's the same old hustle. A few people at the top, and we think it's something new, though. Look at these billionaires. Look, Jeff Bezos has $143 billion. Rockefeller had $400 billion. Comparison. $500 billion. And they have these algorithms, and what are they finding out about the technological era? It's just as racist, just as discriminatory, and just as exploitative as the plantation era, the oil era, the industrial revolution. The workers, then you used to get crushed in a mine, you used to get scurvy on the ship, you used to get heat stroke from the plantation, now you get carpal tunnels from sitting, and now they've got macular degeneration and all other type of ailments. And biological biorhythm disruption from the R waves, from cellular technology. They're finding that the technology, just like the cigarette industry, they're lying about the health impacts of the technology and exposure, child labor in the Congo, mining coltan, e-waste in Ghana. Africa, again, is at the bottom, being hyper-exploited above all in the new industry. The same stuff as all the other industries, but people are like, look at this beautiful cell phone, look at this sleek laptop. I am part of the new information age. I am part of the information economy because I can take what little crumbs of money I earn and go sit in a Starbucks and click away at this computer, and I'm part of the world economy. When you're nothing but a peasant, you're nothing but a serf, you're nothing but an enslaved, exploited entity. And now, oh, we got to study coding. We got to master coding. That's the same stuff, and we orient a whole new generation. No, we need to study dialectical and historical militarism. We need to have our youth studying guerrilla warfare. We need to have our youth studying self-sufficiency, how to use a small plot of land and limited resources to sustain yourself, because it's the same damn situation. And we're hyping our children up for failure. And after we orient a whole generation into, we got to code, this is STEM, and we tell them, if you learn to code, if you master STEM, you will have a wonderful life. And when they don't have it, and they just drop out of life, do drugs, join gangs because you told them another lie, like when you told them the lie, if they work hard and obey the laws, they'll integrate, they'll have opportunity. If they study agriculture back during the Reconstruction era, if they become good citizens, lawful citizens, learn the language, become literate, and show up at the voting polls, they'll be full-on citizens. And here comes Jim Crow. And so it's the same hustle, and we've fallen for the same damn hustle. But we're supposed to be smarter than the European feudal serfs. We're supposed to be smarter than the emancipated black man under Jim Crow. We're supposed to be smarter than the silly miner and Appalachian miner, or the big city Detroit auto line worker under the Ford. We're supposed to be smarter than these people. We're supposed to be. Some of us got passports. Some of us own stock, and it's the same. We have the same vulnerability, and the barons are running the same hustle. We don't even force them to switch up their manipulation and their hustle, because we such easy marks. What's up with that? And again, the barons. And what do algorithms? These algorithms dictate every aspect of our life. And we think the internet is this magical thing. When there are cables being run Every day I see brothers out here climbing up these poles, running in and out of these houses. I don't see Jeff Bezos ain't dropped off one package to one house. It's these underpaid, undercompensated workers. Brothers delivering, these damn Uber drivers, Lyft drivers. This gig economy is nothing more than another new age sharecropping. You don't own the label. You don't own nothing. You just got your little car, just like the sharecropper had his little plot of land, and the master take the lion's share and get rich while you're just barely working the same yourself. It's digital sharecropping. It's digital cotton picking. And you think you're so damn smart. I have to debate with people the gig economy. I'm able to set my own hours. I got as much free time I can define it. What do you do with your free time? Cry in the corner? Eating crackers and peanut butter? You ain't got enough money to do nothing else? And that's on top of that. The one thing that the peasants and the feuds and the slaves didn't have to worry about on top of the barren system, the hyper-exploitation capitalist economy, is the damn ecosystems are collapsing all around us. So not only am I going to exploit your labor, I'm going to destroy your world. Which is something that the past generations, at least they didn't have the capacity to do that. They tried hard, now they're there. And they got these algorithms, these soulless, mindless computers that only focus on accuracy and efficiency. They don't have morality. They don't have ethics. They don't have a sense of justice. And out of MIT is producing reports that algorithms have the same biases as their creator. Algorithms are sexist, racist, ableist, Western-oriented, Eurocentric algorithms. Because algorithms dictate arrest, where they center policing, what areas need more aggressive policing, which other areas don't, and they always fall on the black community to be over-policed, sentencing and parole. They use algorithms to determine who's worthy of parole and what type of sentencing should be used for what type of crimes. And lo and behold, it's black people that are denied parole most often, black people that are given the longest sentences. And this is coming out of MIT. Go to my blog. I'll share the links. Social unrest. They have algorithms. They knew that if they had these social models and these scale model programs that run societal scale. What do they call the word escaped me, but like models. And they can determine where social arrest is going to emerge and how they can use the limited amount of inputs to get the maximum effort in terms of policing. That's why you notice if you used to go to protests, I've been going to protests since the 90s. The way they engage the protesters, the way they corral and move the protests is completely different than how they used to do it. It used to be back in the day a really knee-jerk reaction. Now they literally use computer programming, satellite tracking in order to limit the impact and the mobility of protests. Consumer trends, we all know about that. We all know about that. You know, I have an urban farmer, and all of a sudden my phone knows to send me anything that have to do with anything as far as plants, lawnmowers, garden tools, water hoses, and it only comes between the spring and early fall. Investment. We have computers literally dictating whether or not we'll have a job tomorrow. They make billions of trade every second. All these computers running these programs, and if any little glitch, any little corrupt level of corrupted data could collapse the economy, and we don't get to have shelter and food for some time. Advertising, targeted advertising, I just mentioned that. Even assassinations, they have algorithms that track the movement and interactions of people around the world. And if you make certain moves, you interact with certain people, and you're in certain locations at certain times, then a drone with no human input will target you, fly over there, and blow your whole damn family up. So these algorithms are determining who lives and dies. Medical care. You go into the medical system, they take your profile. They take your blood sample. And if you need a transplant, if you need a certain invasive treatment, they will say, well, we're not going to do this triple bypass and save your life because you're not likely to survive afterwards because you're going to eat chicken afterwards. And they deny people health care. And like I said, if you read Weapons of Math Destruction, these algorithms are, and they tell us, technology, computers have no biases. They tell us computers Math is pure. They tell us that math doesn't lie. Math is the truth. And then you find out these mathematical formulas, like I said, are sexist, racist, ableist, nationalist, discriminatory. So the new age, the new computer age, the era of the algorithm is not a new era of progress, achievement, communication, mobility. This era is just digital, high-tech barbarism. You get with the program or they will kill you. You get with the program or they will deny you any level of mobility. You want to get a loan. You want to secure any level of resources. You want opportunity. And the algorithm deems you unworthy of a loan. The algorithm can deem you unworthy of healthcare. The algorithm can deem you unworthy. While Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates go around the world and dictate to us how we are to live and interact. And we just go along with it. We offer less resistance to the tech barons than the peasants offered to their wicked, corrupt noblemen, than the slaves offered to the plantation masters. At least a slave would piss in the soup from time to time, would slow down labor. Even the Wobblies in the 1920s in the early labor movement with the sit-down strikes. Humanity, more educated with more tools for resistance than ever had. We're more docile and complacent than any other population of peasants, serfs, and slaves. We offer less resistance. Even now in Haiti, a bunch of illiterate, malnourished people in Haiti had a general strike and were able to buck their government. In the United States, the heart of the empire, the belly of the beast, we sit complacent, thinking that we're part of this new age. When we are not, we are the human resources. We are the fodder to be mined, burnt, and discarded. We should resist this nonsense. Quit telling children, oh, just go to STEM. I was just talking to a sister who teaches STEM to black and brown girls. And she told them, I'm not teaching you STEM so you can go to Google. I'm teaching you STEM so you can subvert Google. We need revolutionized youth. I don't care if those youth are sitting around clicking away at computer, laptops, or they're in these streets. We have to revolutionize youth. We have to teach them this history, this reoccurring history. And even though it's been going on since the 1300s, this is not the way of the world. This is not a natural system. This is not a viable system. This is an artificial, pathological system of barons and elites. We need to take their money. We need to take their resources. Where did the internet come from? Public funding. Where did the infrastructure for the internet come from? Public resources. The internet is socialism. It belongs to the people, and we've allowed a few corporations and a few human parasites to take it over. And we celebrating them. We're looking, ooh, oh wow, now Bezos is worth $50 billion more than Bill Gates, and we watch it like it's a horse race, like something we should celebrate. And then don't let a black tech giant emerge. Don't let a black parasite emerge. Then black people lose their collective minds. Oh, now we got a black-owned plantation. And his cotton harvest was bigger than the white, like as if that's something. Black capitalism won't save us. Black barons won't save us. We need a system of justice. We need scientific socialism. We need to end private property. We need to end the concept and practices and exploitation of human resources. This new digital age is not anything different than the old barbaric exploitation industries of the past. And if there's any new, from 3D printing technology onto hydrogen energy, any new into space colonization, if we as humans do not stop this pathological Eurocentric Western mind state, then everything we do will fall into this mode. Every new technology, every new invention will be oriented towards profit and human exploitation. Even beneficial, if they cure cancer tomorrow, they will turn it into a profit generating engine. So don't just sit around waiting for the next new invention. The faster internet, the sexier phone with the higher pixelated camera. We need revolution. And we have a long track record of people, when they're willing to organize against these barons, against these global elites, that we can win. They don't have enough guns, enough paid soldiers and mercenaries to stop us. The only thing they can do is convince us to defeat ourselves, to convince us it's wrong to think of victimhood, to be a victim, convince us that it's wrong to feel angry, convince us that Jeff Bezos has earned his money, that Mark Zuckerberg has earned his money, that Donald Trump earned his money, and that he has a right to govern us. They can convince us to defeat ourselves because they can't defeat us, and they're very good. Like I said, they have the industry. Edward Bernays, 1930s, they figured we can no longer club people into submission. We need more sophisticated means. So they're in our schools. Look at Bill Gates' education initiatives. What the hell is Bill Gates doing in our schools? He's supposed to retire. Bill Gates didn't retire. Bill Gates started the Gates Foundation in order to program the world. He's like, I can program the computer. I can program the earth. I can program every resident on the planet. And he's trying to apply a computer model to human existence, to have us all functioning like bits and codes in a computer according to his will. And every time I turn around, we got a Bill Gates scholar. We got a Bill Gates grant. At least the peasants of the past knew they were peasants. African people. You know, we better than this. And if we ain't better than this, we better get better than this. The barons are not worthy of our respect. The barons are not worthy of the money they have. That's our resources. Take it back by force if necessary. Rise up. Stop being in awe of the money they have. Stop being in awe of their little tricks. They go, and remember who's that other scumbag over Apple? I can't remember his name. The Apple CEO that died of liver failure after getting liver transplant, I'm sure from some poor prisoner. He would show, oh, look at this new technology, and look what we're able to do. And we were like, ooh. That's what they used to have in the plantation. They'd have some magician, some priest come and show some new tech, and the peasant, ooh, look at the magics of the elites. Nobody's done $1 billion worth of work. Nobody's done $100 million worth of work. All the elites, all the barons are parasites. That's our wealth. That's our resources. This is our world. Retake it and stop falling for the trick. Stop repeating the sad cycle of European history. We're going to have some music and a little more. Bro Diallo Show, Q4 Radio, AM 1680, DialloKenyatta.com, Q4.org. Thanks for listening live. I'll see y'all next Wednesday. Oh, I'm going to be in Wisconsin this weekend. So if you're in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, give me a shout out because I'll be there over the weekend doing some research on your urban agricultural infrastructure. So